We are here at Audioholics Live 2024, Bowers and Wilkins Nautilus speakers. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Hey folks, I'm Gene Delasala with Audioholics. We are here with Eric Mcbride. He has the most unique job at Bowers & Wilkins. He's the curator of the Nautilus speaker. If you're buying these speakers and getting them set up, or you're getting drivers replaced, or you're getting it calibrated, this is the focal point. This is the guy that you will meet that will be sent out to set up your system. Am I right?
Yes, you are.
What is your
Unfortunately.
What is your official title?
My official title is Premium Audio Brand Manager, but like many people at Bowers, Massimo, I wear many hats. I've been with the company for 26 plus years, so I know the Nautilus very, very well.
Too well.
Almost too well, in a way. So I know all the bugaboos. I know where all the bodies are buried.
Well, I just find it fascinating that this speaker is literally, what, 31 years old?
31 years old, yep.
You're still producing it and you're still selling it, despite the fact, I don't even want to ask the price, but I'm sure it's somewhere close to six figures.
Yes, it is. It's about $100,000 now, right now for a pair. It's a 31-year-old loudspeaker, but nothing has changed on it acoustically in 31 years. The only things that have changed have to do with internal connection points and some crossover adjustments that we had to make for power standards. Yeah.
So I didn't even know that these were active speakers, and I was looking at these two modules here, and I asked you, I go, is this DSP or is it analog? I assumed analog because back then we were talking about Commodore 64 processing power.
Yeah, exactly.
Couldn't really do it active with DSP.
No. Yeah, 100% analog. Only thing that changed on that crossover over the years is literally just some power. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So now these speakers are they're not tri-amplified, they're quad amplified.
Quad amplified,
right?
Yep.
So every driver has its own amplifier, as you can see here with the Classé electronics here. It's just a very unique experience hearing these speakers.
Yeah.
When I was sitting there listening, I was like, are they even on? Like, that's what I kind of thought in my head, and then you actually said that yourself, which was really interesting. You know, you look at this, it's such a narrow baffle. You don't see the drivers moving, and we had it up pretty loud, but it's just, they have a lot of range. They have a lot of dynamics to them. They just sound very open, almost like you're not listening to a speaker.
Yeah. And that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a true four-way design, right? Each individual driver, like you said, Gene, requires its own channel of amplification. But the one thing about these speakers that's different than anything else that Bowers has ever done is the fact that the speaker just disappears, the transparency aspect of it, right? You're basically dealing with drivers in free space. It's truly remarkable. They just disappear, like you said. When you're listening to it, you don't even hear the speaker. You just hear the sound. You hear the performance. It's pretty wild.
So what is the genesis of this design? I know a lot of your products today are using the tapered chambers for the drivers. Mm-hmm. Is this where it was birthed from, this actual product? 100%,
100%. Before John Bowers passed away, he tasked his crew of engineers at SRE with creating the perfect loudspeaker. And obviously, you know, one of the primary things that they wanted to focus on was the reduction of diffraction, but also the rear standing waves. Because as everybody knows, a driver is pistonic, right? Mm-hmm. So it produces sound not only through the front, but also through the back. So those rear standing waves, how do you dissipate those? In a closed box system, you have, you know, that standing waves come back and they kind of move around, they create coloration or distortion. With the Nautilus, what we decided to do was put reverse taper technology on it. So there's a taper tube actually attached to the backside of each individual driver, which takes those rear standing waves and basically dissipates it, attenuates it all the way out. And so we've taken that technology over the years and we've transferred that down to everything, including our headphones, which is pretty wild when you think about it. Because people are like, oh, You have a taper tube in a headphone? Like, well, it's more of a swirl taper tube, but it is a taper tube in our headphones.
Honestly, this is one of the most unique speakers I've ever seen in the history of loudspeakers, right? When you look at it from the side, it looks kind of like a snail, for not a better analogy. What was the purpose of that for it, other than aesthetically?
No, yeah, so actually aesthetically has really nothing to do with it, to be honest with you. So Lauren Stickey was head engineer assigned to the Nautilus loudspeaker. When they started doing the taper tube technology measurements, they realized that with the low frequency, that you would have to make that tube 13 feet, 8 inches long. Well, that's not gonna fit in most people's homes, right? So one day he's sitting out on his patio having a spot of tea. He sees a snail come by on his patio. He sees the conical shape of it and he goes, huh, maybe we can use that. Next day they started working on a wood prototype of the Nautilus, and yeah, the rest is history.
So it's basically, if, for lack of a better term, it's a transmission line
Yeah, pretty
enclosure.
much, yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So why did you pair this up with Classé, other than the fact that they're all kind of one conglomerate of brands?
Well, Classé does an amazing job. You have an unlimited power supply, unlimited control. Even though it's an active loudspeaker, it still demands a decent amount of power. So we wanted to make sure that we powered it with something that was substantial, clean, accurate, and precise. So.
Well, I can tell you this, Classé are some of my favorite linear AB designs. I reviewed the CT2300, which was a rack mount version of the amplifier years ago. That was one of the best measuring linear amplifiers. I think it was rated at 200 watts a channel, but it was unclipped at about 250. So you guys were really conservative. Very low noise, very low distortion, ran cool because of the IC tunnel. Right? There was just so much technology packed into that amplifier. This, of course, takes it to the next level, more power, bigger power supply. They're just beautiful electronics, and I just love the whole aesthetic and look of this system.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
So how does this all connect? Because I see one cable, but there's 4 amplifiers going to it.
Yeah, so the speakers themselves come with its own proprietary speaker cable. It's made by a company called Vandersteen. It's a solid silver cable. Everything is directly hardwired to the drivers themselves, the transducers, and then it comes out, goes into the amplifier. So the purpose of that was try to create the most consistent, most cleanest signal path from content to pre to amplification. So what we did essentially is we have an outboard external crossover that you can see down there in the middle. So we have a delta pre, which basically feeds that. So your preamp feeds into the crossover. Crossover then does its job and then feeds all the amplifier channels with the appropriate frequencies.
So let's say someone bought these speakers 25, 30 years ago, and God forbid a tweeter or a mid-range blew out. Do you just send them one, or is there a big process?
No, there's a process to it.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So essentially what happens is everything's serialized. So if upper mid-range were to blow, I would have to contact the UK, tell them what serial number it is, which driver it is. They would look it up on their computer. They would see the frequency response of that particular driver, and then they would find a driver that measures exactly the same, and they also include a resistor pack that you have to actually change out every time you change out a driver. So what happens is they send the driver over, I fly out to the customer's home or the dealer's home or wherever it may be, and I physically have to unsolder the driver, connect the new driver, and then do the resistor pack in the crossover network.
That's pretty amazing. 3 decades long, you guys are still supporting product.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
It's pretty wild.
So let's talk a little bit about the listening. I know you said there was an artist that has these speakers that, I don't know if she mixed on it or she just listens on it.
Yeah, so I mean, a number of artists obviously have these speakers, but it's one in particular that we've been focusing on lately is an artist named Freya Ridings. And the song that we love to play for people is called Lost Without You, and it's a very emotional track for her.
Yeah.
But this was actually recorded in a studio that uses Bowers and Wilkins loudspeakers to do all the engineering and mastering. So one of the cool things about this whole experience this week is we had the opportunity to play her track to people exactly the way that she heard it when she recorded it. So I think that's pretty cool.
It was a wonderful
cool
track.
story.
I really enjoyed it. I'm glad you introduced us to that.
Yeah.
I also played something that was familiar with me. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Dominique Fils-Aimé. She's a fan of our channel as well. We played the song Rise. It was very clear. Like I loved hearing her vocals. It was snappy. Now this is not an ideal room. The bass was not as controlled as I would have liked to it have been, but I know it wasn't the speaker's fault. I know these walls are very rigid. You didn't have any bass trapping in here. I heard these speakers probably 6 or 7 years ago at a Bowers Wilkins press event in a separate room. You're responsible for setting that up, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and there was only one chair in there at the time.
One chair.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
That was a great experience. I'm happy that I got to hear these speakers twice now.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. People are going to be wondering, how good are these speakers compared to the new 801s?
So the best way to compare it, because we get that a lot, right? The best way to compare it is, it's like, what's the difference between a 69 Corvette and a 2024 Corvette? Is one of them bad? No. Is one of them faster? Of course. But at the end of the day, the 69 Corvette is iconic.
Yeah.
Right? So many people covet that, where they may not covet a 2024 Corvette. So in terms of performance, yeah, you go faster, you'll corner better in the new Corvette or the 800 series. But at the end of the day, the Nautilus do something different, I think, than any other loudspeaker I've ever heard, which is they just disappear in like transparency. It's just absolutely off the charts.
They disappear, but they're a conversation piece. I mean, you can't stress how beautiful these speakers are until you see them in person. And I could just imagine in a living room or even a controlled listening room for 2-channel with the proper lighting in here, these are just beautiful art pieces that actually sound good.
Absolutely.
What kind of finish options are offered for these speakers?
Pretty much anything you want, but we do a lot of automotive, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Aston Martin, Rolls-Royce. All of our painters, because these are all hand-built in the UK, all of our painters are certified through Rolls-Royce, which is right down the street from our Worthing facility. So you can get it in anything, including Hello Kitty pink, if that interests you.
Yeah, I can see that. So basically, you guys have to decide, do you want a new pair of Nautilus speakers or do you want a Porsche Carrera?
Yeah, pretty much.
Or both.
Or both.
If you can afford either, you can afford both.
Exactly.
Well, Eric, I really appreciate you dropping the knowledge on these speakers. Guys, if you like these speakers and this is your jam, we will put affiliate links to AudioVice, our channel partner. Please use those if you can. It would help us out. I hope you liked this video. Please hit the thumb up, hit subscribe. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to me if you want to suggest video topics. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.